Welcome to the Bluff Creek Podcast Radio.
I'm Elliot.
And I'm Malak. And today's special guest is Mrs. Denton.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
What do you like doing outside of work?
Outside of work, I have a lot of hobbies. I love to read. I love to exercise, even though my work involves exercise. I'm an avid supporter of environmental groups. I like to hike. I like to go rafting down the Yellowstone River. And I really like spending a lot of time outdoors.
So, where do you go to work?
I have a small business here in Chanhassen. It's called Bring It Studios and CrossFit Chanhassen.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up actually nearby. I grew up in Shakopee. Then I went to college in Duluth at University of Minnesota Duluth, and then I went to graduate school in New York City at New York University, and I lived in New York for 12 years, and then I moved out to Los Angeles, and I lived in LA for about 12 years.
And where would you travel when you were growing up?
You know what? I didn't travel a lot when I was growing up. We had a cabin up north, like a lot of people do, in Sturgeon Lake, so we would go there a lot. But I have 4 sisters, so there were 5 girls in my house, a total of 7, so that's 7 people with my parents. And back then it was just too expensive for 7 people to get on an airplane. So I travel a lot now. My husband is an actor, and he works all over the world, so every once in a while, myself and the kids are able to go with him.
What are some places you've been to?
I've been to Paris. I've been to London. I've been to Australia. I've been to Ireland. I've been to Malta on the Mediterranean. I've been to Canada. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been almost to every single state in the United States, including Hawaii and Alaska, but I've never been to New Hampshire or Maine. Those are the 2 states I've never been to.
So it sounds like you love traveling.
I really do. I like experiencing other cultures. I like eating different kinds of food. Usually when I travel, I don't like to usually stay in a hotel. I'd rather stay in an apartment or somewhere, and I like to learn how to use the transportation system. I like to use the subway when I live in New York City. We always make sure we're on the tube when we're in London, and we've used public transportation in Paris. In Malta, we had a driver, so unfortunately, I wasn't taking a taxi, but we had a driver who was a tour guide, so he would take us everywhere.
So, what was your favorite place that you've been to?
Paris, France. It is extraordinary, but I'll tell you a story about Paris, France. The last night we were there, my husband and I went out to dinner, and someone had warned me. They said, be careful when you order steak, because steak there can also mean horse. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll just remember that. So we went out the very last night, and I ordered steak. And I don't know what it was, but I got so sick. I got food poisoning, and I couldn't get on the airplane the next day. We had to cancel our flight, and I had to wait for 24 hours because I was throwing up for 24 hours. And I think it's because I ate horse.
That sounds bad. It's terrible. Do you like your work?
I love what I do. I used to be an actor. When I went to graduate school in New York City for acting. And I was an actress, theater actress, and I did some soap operas back when soap operas were kind of hot. I did that for many years. And my side job was always teaching fitness, was group exercise. And once I moved to Los Angeles, I kind of decided that I didn't want to pursue acting anymore, that I wanted to pursue fitness. And I absolutely love it. It is, if I could go back and redo part of my life, I think what I would do is, rather than go to school for theater, I would go to school for fitness, and I would have a master's degree in physiology or exercise fitness or something like that. I wish I had gotten a degree in fitness.
So you and Mr. Denton were both actors.
Yep, that's where we met. We were both doing a play in Los Angeles, and we played brother and sister, and that's where we met.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does your grandma live down there, or does she?
And what was one of your favorite commercials or play you were in?
I did a national tour of a play. I was doing Henry V, which is a Shakespeare play, and then I was also doing a play called Arms and the Man. It's by George Bernard Shaw, and that was the most fun play I've ever been in. And we traveled all over the United States in a bus. And a funny story about that was we went to almost all 50 states except New Hampshire and Maine. But my favorite state when I was on the bus was North Dakota. I had never been to North Dakota. I grew up in Minnesota, but there was no reason to go to North Dakota. No one ever went and vacationed in North Dakota. And I had been living in New York City for about 9 years at that time, and I decided to, when we were on tour, I was in North Dakota, and it reminded me so much of Minnesota, and you could see for miles and miles and miles and miles and see absolutely nothing except corn and sky and grass, and I thought it was the most beautiful place I'd ever been, North Dakota.
Did you like traveling in buses, or do you think it was kind of boring?
It was a little bit tough, but when you're in a company of actors, there were about 20 of us, and we all got to be really good friends. We'd play a lot of cards. We would read a lot. We'd watch a lot of movies together. We'd go over our lines, because we were doing 2 plays at the time. And it was a really wonderful time in my life. I didn't really have any place to live. I was living on a bus with all my actor friends, and it was pretty cool.
Sounds fun.
It was fun.
I think I like traveling in a car to or a bus, or maybe something that would take a while to get.
Like a train?
Yeah. Well, to talk to my family members and watch movies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I like it better than flying. Flying, when you're going to France, you have to get on an airplane, obviously, and then it's nice because they feed you and you get to watch a bunch of movies, and that's kind of fun. But I much rather be in a car and drive and see the world than fly over. Yeah.
It's true.
Normally when we go, we take our van, which has a movie screen in it, and we normally watch movies sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the time we can look out and see what's outside.
Nice, yeah. It's very relaxing.
Yeah, that's true. So, what was one of your favorite memories? One of your memories?
Of growing up, or of my adulthood.
Any memory.
You know what? I remember. I was when I was trying to have Shepherd. He's 12 years old now, but I was trying to have him at home. I didn't want to have him in a hospital. So I tried to have him at home, and I was in labor for 46 hours. I didn't sleep for 46 hours, and I was pacing and trying to have a baby, and eventually I had to go to the hospital. But that's probably my strongest memory of Los Angeles, was the time I tried to have a baby at home, and I couldn't, and I had to go to the hospital.
That's a funny story.
I know, it's a funny story.
So when you were traveling, there was 20 people with you, and so you would go to all those states besides
we would go,
those 2 or 3?
Yep, we would go to all these different states, and there'd be a theater, and we booked our show, and then someone would unload the truck, all the sets and the costumes and the lights, and that the night before they'd set everything up, and then the next day we'd have a run through on stage, and then that night, and maybe for 3 nights, we'd perform the show. So we always had a different audience every night, and usually a different state every 3 days.
Yeah.
So would you like sleep in hotels, like when they were?
Yes, we would sleep in hotels. We did not have to sleep on the bus. The bus wasn't didn't have beds on it or anything like that. And we'd have to, eat out. Some people would bring a big bag of food and,
Just snack?
yeah, and just try to snack. But it was hard,
So you guys would stop places.
We would stop places and, get water and get some food. And, yeah, but mostly we stayed in hotels.
So you'd have to buy your own food at places?
Yep. They give you something called a per diem, where they give you like $200 a week to spend on food and drinks. And as an actor, though, you try not to spend all of it, so you can kind of save that money. But besides your salary, your paycheck, they would give you per diem. That means per day. It's money per day.
So you would try to spend some but save some?
Yes, I always tried to save as much as I could. I don't eat very much. I'm pretty little.
So, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's podcast was brought to you by Bluff Creek Podcast Radio, encouraging you to connect with someone new today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.